Rioting in the Netherlands against more COVID restrictions. Rotterdam police open fire as anti-lockdown protests turn violent. Also tonight, more migrants cross the Channel as the Home Secretary plans stricter rules for new arrivals. The US teenager who shot dead 2 people during racial unrest speaks of his relief after being acquitted.
Self-defense is not illegal, and I believe they came to the correct verdict, and I'm glad that everything went well.
England edge past world champions South Africa in the rugby.
This is the most insane thing I've ever seen. Someone dropped money all over the freeway.
And raining money on the motorway, thousands of dollars fall out of an armoured van, but no one is allowed to cash in.
This is ITV News with Kylie Pentelow.
Good evening. There's tension across Europe tonight as fresh lockdowns being put in place to counter a surge in COVID cases are being bitterly resisted by some. At least 2 protesters were shot by police during riots in the Dutch city of Rotterdam overnight. Hundreds of angry people hurled bricks and fireworks at officers and burnt police cars. And other protests against tightening restrictions have also taken place in several European cities today. The latest now from Sejal Karia.
This is one of the worst outbreaks of violence in the Netherlands during the pandemic. New restrictions not just prompting resistance, but palpable anger, spilling out on the streets of Rotterdam. With rioters setting off fireworks and flares and throwing rocks and missiles at police officers. Several people were hurt, 20 were arrested. The mayor of the city condemned the violence, saying on several occasions police had to draw their weapons to defend themselves. With a record number of COVID cases and a new partial lockdown in force, Europe is once again at the epicenter of the pandemic. This evening in Austria, tensions were running high as people took to the streets of Vienna, protesting against the full lockdown coming in on Monday and plans to make vaccines compulsory. The country has one of the highest infection rates in Europe. Neighbouring Czech Republic has recorded its worst COVID count since the pandemic began. The majority of hospital patients are unvaccinated and less than 2/3 of people have been inoculated, unlike the UK.
I'm not anticipating any explosive increase in cases of the kind we've recently seen in Austria and elsewhere in Eastern Europe. In many ways, we're further ahead than those countries in the course of our epidemic. We both relaxed our measures earlier, we started our immunisation programme earlier, and we've also, crucially, experienced a wave of Delta variant virus earlier.
But as unrest towards new restrictions grows in the rest of Europe, the World Health Organization says urgent action is needed now to avoid hundreds of thousands of deaths. Sejal Karia, ITV News.
Coast Guards report it's been another busy day of migrant crossings in the Channel, with dozens estimated to have arrived on the shores of Kent. Well, our correspondent Juliet Bremner is in Dover for us tonight. Juliet, despite cold and some fog, there continues to be an influx there.
Yeah, no sign yet that the numbers will be dropping, as you might expect. And today at Dungeness, there were dozens more brought ashore. We understand that a mayday call had been put out by boats in the Channel when they spotted a rubber dinghy carrying anything up to 40 people, including women and children. And the Coast Guard did manage to bring them back in safely. There were several hundred more, we are told, here at Dover, brought in by the Border Force today as well, which brings totals this year very close to 25,000, far more than last year.
And Juliet, it was revealed today that the Home Secretary is considering stricter rules for those asylum seekers who reach the UK.
Yeah, that's right. We're told that Priti Patel, who so far, despite the tough talk, has had very little effect on the numbers, is now looking at Greece, where she likes the centres that they're building. Now, critics have compared them to prisons. Apparently, asylum seekers who are put in them are under strict curfew and their movements are monitored. Human rights campaigners say that they just wouldn't be acceptable in Britain.
There have been huge delays for many years for people trying to either get into the Greek asylum system or get decisions out of that system, let alone have justice through those decisions. There are all sorts of concerns about what's happening in Greece, and we certainly don't want to see that in our asylum system here.
We do have deals with France, which was supposed to stop the migrants, but they don't seem to be working. And the Prime Minister is said to be exasperated by the entire situation. He's ordered a review, demanding that all departments in the government work towards stopping these channel crossings.
Juliet Bremner, thank you. There's been more outrage over the acquittal of an American teenager who shot dead 2 men during an anti-racism protest last year. President Joe Biden said he and many other Americans feel angry at the verdict. The gunman, 18-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, has also spoken of his relief, saying the jury made the correct decision because self-defense is not illegal. Robert Moore has the latest from America.
Real things are going on in the world.
There were scattered protests and marches in American cities overnight, but they were peaceful.
It does not matter.
Activists simply expressing their shock and their surprise at the verdict.
It's absurd to me, and it really reveals how broken the system is.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
Kyle Rittenhouse collapsed in court when the acquittal on all charges was announced. It came after a trial that has sharpened America's political and racial divisions.
You're waking up in a dark, cold sweat.
And speaking to a documentary team working for a right-wing TV show, Rittenhouse described his ordeal, including nightmares.
It's scary, actually, because the dreams feel so real.
He is also seen smiling broadly after the verdict and hugging family members. The teenage, self-styled vigilante is now receiving acclaim from Republicans and supporters of gun rights, and he in turn praised the jury.
The jury reached the correct verdict. Self-defense is not illegal. And I believe they came to the correct verdict, and I'm glad that everything went well. And it's been a rough journey, but we made it through it.
Last summer, Rittenhouse, armed with an AR-15, killed 2 people and injured a third, while being chased down the street during anti-racism protests. Many on the left are appalled at the verdict and have called it a miscarriage of justice. Vice President Harris weighed in on what's become an explosive national debate.
I have questions about the verdict, and the verdict really speaks for itself.
One far-right congressman issued this video message.
You have a right to defend yourselves. Be armed, be dangerous, and be moral.
It leaves the 18-year-old from Illinois who wept on the stand when giving evidence. An unlikely lightning rod in America's intensifying cultural and political battles. Robert Moore, ITV News, Washington.
The government has announced it will begin a consultation on single-use plastics in England with a view to banning things like plastic plates, cutlery and polystyrene cups. Scotland has already announced a ban on most single-use plastics from next June, but campaigners say we're still not going far enough. Vincent McCaveney has more.
At every barbecue and birthday party you've ever been to, you've probably used some of these single-use plastics, which even once we're gone, will pollute the environment for centuries. Every year in England, we throw away just over 1 billion single-use plates, 2.5 billion coffee cups, and around 4.25 billion items of cutlery made of plastic. It's estimated only 10% are ever recycled, so the government are launching a 12-week consultation on phasing them out in England.
We want business to be aware, via their consumers, via government powers, that actually this is the direction of travel, it's the right thing to do.
Food markets and street stalls like this have become incredibly popular in recent years, but they are some of the biggest users of single-use plastic. So should we be bringing our own cups and cutlery to dine out? Stall owner Mataja has already got rid of as much plastic as possible, but can't find alternatives for some items.
Most of our stuff are biodegradable. We're not using plastic apart from the plastic lids, which if they provide us with the lids, which they are non-plastic, we will use it.
The public seem to be on board with the plans.
Now I'm buying bamboo plates and cutlery and stuff like that. So it's not much more expensive. So yeah, get rid of all the plastic.
Maybe yeah, because we've still not done quite enough yet.
I think it's time to find new solutions to this issue.
But environmental campaigners are urging the government to act quicker.
I think the British public really want us to move away from this throwaway society. And while this consultation move by the government is a positive thing, it does mean more delay. We need to ban these items now.
The consultation will also look at taking further steps of banning wet wipes, tobacco filters and sachets. But unless action is taken swiftly, our distant descendants might still be left cleaning up our mess. Vincent McAviney, ITV News.
The number of people who died while being treated under the Mental Health Act has almost doubled. The Care Quality Commission found that in the year to March in England, 490 patients died while they were detained under the Mental Health Act. A third of them were COVID-related. The RAC is calling for petrol retailers to cut the price of fuel to reflect a drop in wholesale costs. It says since recent record highs, wholesale prices have gone down and drivers are being overcharged. Chinese state media has released allegedly new but unverified video of the missing tennis star Peng Shuai, said to be on the right here in the white jumper. Ms. Shuai hasn't been seen for nearly 3 weeks after she accused a former government official of sexual assault. Tennis world number one Novak Djokovic has said he is willing to pull out of competitions in China if she isn't confirmed safe and well.
This is horrifying. I mean, a person is missing. This is necessary for us to take whatever actions. And I heard that just now from Reem that WTA is willing to pull out from China. I mean, with all the tournaments, unless this is resolved. I support it 100%.
Sport, and there were two great results for home nations in the rugby. Scotland beat Japan 29-20 at Murrayfield, and a new look England avenged their defeat in the World Cup final, beating world champion South Africa 27-26 at Twickenham. Chris Scudder was watching.
This was personal for England, the first meeting of these two heavyweights since the World Cup final 2 years ago. Revenge in the air, and they made the perfect start. England's bright young things battered away. A new fullback sensation, Freddie Stewart, scored a second try. The world champions' big men tried to knock England out of their stride. They edged in front with the boot, but then this. England's young guard combined for a fabulous try from replacement scrum half Rafi Quirk. It wasn't over. South Africa scored their only try to cut the gap to a point. And as England conceded too many penalties, they fell behind with minutes to go. But in a dramatic finish, they got a penalty of their own, and young fly half Marcus Smith did the rest. Victory over the world champions by a single point. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
In the Premier League, more trouble for Manchester United's under-pressure manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. United were thrashed 4-1 at Watford after England's Harry Maguire was sent off. Well, earlier, Chelsea maintained their lead at the top of the table with a comfortable 3-0 win at Leicester. And finally for this evening, who says pennies don't fall from heaven or that the streets aren't paved with gold?
This is the most insane thing I've ever seen. Someone dropped money all over the freeway. San Diego has shut down.
Well, these drivers couldn't believe their eyes or their luck and hurriedly scrambled for armfuls of money as hundreds of dollar bills fell onto the highway in California yesterday. Police say the door of an armoured bank van had popped open, spilling bags of cash all over the road. Well, it quickly caused a chaotic traffic jam as drivers stopped to help themselves. But police are warning that anyone who's taken money and doesn't hand it in could face criminal charges. They don't know exactly how much money is still missing. And that's it. The weather's next, followed by the news where you are. I'm back at 10:30. Bye-bye.